What's up, everybody? Jordan McAbee here, lead NASCAR analyst for RotoBaller, and we are coming off a massive week at Phoenix. RotoBaller subscriber 10 2 took down the big GPP on DraftKings for $70,000. I personally was up over 20 units between betting and DFS, and that's all thanks to absolute domination by Toyota in the desert at Phoenix. So make sure that you get in on the winning with RotoBaller. Sign up for the premium NASCAR content. We've been crushing it these last 2 weeks. Looking forward to the future and this week up at Bristol. Use code Jordan24. Get in on the winning, and we're hot heading into Bristol. So like I said, Toyota absolutely dominated Phoenix. 5 different drivers from that camp led over 50 laps. We now move on to Bristol Motor Speedway, where you guessed it, Toyota dominated the last race here. Denny Hamlin won. He led 142 laps. Christopher Bell, who just dominated here at Phoenix this last weekend with an absolute rocket ship of a race car, he led a race high 187 laps, finished third. And Ty Gibbs, who was surprised last week at Bristol, last race here at Phoenix, led 102 laps, top 5 finish. So we may be looking at another race where Toyota definitely has a major advantage. Now, Bristol, it's a half-mile track, 0.533 miles technically. It's steeply banked oval. And here's the change this week, no dirt. Typically, the first race of the season at Bristol is the dirt race. That's how it's been the last 3 years. NASCAR said no more. We're going back to concrete. So in the next-gen era, we have 2 races here on Bristol concrete, and they've both been at night in the fall. This is the first time in the spring that we're racing on concrete. So only 2 races and limited data. So when it comes to Bristol, it makes it a little bit more unpredictable this week, but at the same time, we know who's good. Here's the thing, though. We've seen plenty of issues in these races in the next-gen car. Ford specifically had tire issues in the 2022 race. Toyota had engine and power steering issues in that race. And also, Bristol overall is just kind of unpredictable and hard for these drivers. It's 500 laps. You're on the wheel the entire time. One small mistake can absolutely ruin your day. So when it comes to Bristol, when it comes to handicapped in Bristol, it's a little difficult, but there are some guys that are very good here, which we'll get to in a second. Now, NASCAR, they're running the intermediate track package this week, which is a little bit of a surprise because this is a short track, but they run that here at Bristol and Dover. So that's a change from last week as we saw the new short track package debut at Phoenix. Same tire combination this week as we saw last year at Bristol. And when you're looking at similar tracks, we're looking at Dover and surprisingly Richmond. And Nick and I talked about this on Stacking Denny's, our podcast, why Richmond is a decent comparison here to Bristol. But the fact of the matter is, if you're good at Bristol, you're good at Bristol, and you're going to be fast at Bristol. And there are definitely drivers that are like that. Now, last week we saw practice on Friday, qualifying on Saturday. This week we got practice and qualifying on Saturday night. They don't start till 5 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. So another little wrench thrown in here because we're getting later in the day practice with a mid-afternoon race on Sunday. So quick turnaround between practice and qualifying. That also limits the amount of time that we can analyze everything this weekend before the race. But heading into the race, Food City 500 race weekend, we do have some drivers that are the favorites that make sense. First up, Kyle Larson. Like I said last week, we're going to be talking about him a lot this year. He's at plus 550 on the betting boards. This is his playground. 6th or better in 7 of the last 9 Bristol races. He has top 5s in both next-gen races here. He finished 2nd last fall despite starting way back in 36th, which is a complete disadvantage at a half-mile racetrack. He was dominant at Vegas this year in this intermediate track package, and he won at Richmond last year. Kyle Larson could very easily win this race on Sunday. Now, you may be asking, what about his partner or his teammate, William Byron? Typically, they're both very fast. William Byron's sitting at 14-1 right now. He's surprisingly never led a single lap at Bristol. 9th, 3rd, and 3rd here in the last 3 races. I expect him to be fast, but Larson is significantly better than William Byron at this racetrack. I'm not really looking at William Byron as a good outright bet this week, heading into the weekend at least. Now, there are 3 favorites this weekend, 3 co-favorites when it comes to the Food City 500. First is Larson, and we have Christopher Bell at plus 625. Like I said, very dominant here. Last year, he actually has led 333 laps combined in the 2 next-gen races at Bristol. Top 5 finishes at both. Best average running position over those 2 races in the entire series, and he's coming off that win at Phoenix. Christopher Bell in that 20 Toyota should be very fast, as should his teammate Denny Hamlin, who won here at Bristol last fall. 3rd best average running position over the last 2 races at Bristol, the only 2 in the next-gen car. And he was 5th at Dover last year, 2nd at Richmond. Denny Hamlin sitting at plus 600 on the betting board. Now, going a little further down, we see a gap to the next tier of drivers when it comes to the betting board and who is favorited. Roush Fenway Keselowski is in that next tier. Both drivers, Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski. I'm specifically looking at Buescher, though. He broke out in Bristol in 2020 with an 8th place finish. He broke out even more in 2022, the first next-gen race here, with a win. Second best average running position over the 2 next-gen races at Bristol. He finished 4th here last season. He won at Richmond. Chris Buescher should be a legitimate contender at Bristol this weekend. He's coming off that 2nd place finish at Phoenix. Look for Buescher to contend. Another driver that I'm targeting that's mid-tier, and I already bet him. I really had no interest and have no interest betting much before practice, before I see these cars on track. But I could not pass up Kyle Busch at 18-1. Now, looking at these next-gen races at Bristol, he wasn't not very strong here in last year with RCR, his first year with that organization. But 2022, Kyle Busch was a legitimate top 5 contender with his Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota. He had an engine issue. That was the end of his night. But Rowdy was super fast here at Vegas this year in this intermediate package, which I really like. He won the pole at Dover last year. He was 3rd at Richmond last year, which, we talked about those similar tracks. But here's the thing. Kyle Busch is sitting at 18-1. He's an 8-time winner at Bristol Motor Speedway. I think Kyle Busch is getting a little overlooked this weekend. Do I think he's he should be the favorite to win? Absolutely not. But at 18-1, I cannot pass him up. I really like that bet this weekend. I felt good. I locked it in last night while we were recording Stacking Denny's, the podcast. Really like Kyle Busch this weekend. I think he can surprise some people despite being an 8-time winner here. One final driver I'm keeping an eye on. I'm not going to be betting him outright, but Michael McDowell, he's sitting 66-1 right now. Like I said, I would not recommend betting him outright, at least heading into the weekend. But he's a sleeper. 6th best average running position in the next-gen car at Bristol. He finished 6th here last year. He was 11th here in 2022. He's finished 14th or better in 4 of the last 5 Bristol races. He's sitting right now at plus 240 for a top 10 finish. Not quite long enough for me to bite, but I'm interested. If I really needed some action and I wanted to get that degenerate in me, I would probably bet Michael McDowell for a top 10 finish at plus 240. But definitely someone to keep an eye on. Michael McDowell's been very fast this weekend. He was fast at Phoenix last weekend. McDowell could definitely be a sleeper, a deep sleeper this weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway. So that's about going to wrap it up. Will this be another Toyota week? Definitely looking like it if Kyle Larson can't get the win. Obviously, Ryan Blaney is always very good at Bristol as well, as are those Roush Fenway Keselowski Fords. But Toyota looks to be the favorite manufacturer heading into the Food City 500 race weekend. We talked about Denny Hamlin. We talked about Christopher Bell. Tyler Reddick has looked great the past couple of weeks. He just has not been able to close it out. Surprisingly, he hasn't led a single lap at Bristol in his entire career here. Now, that's a very short period of time, but still it's noteworthy. With that being said, the high line comes into Bristol. Tyler Reddick is one of the best at running that high line. He could very well continue on and continue to be a contender this weekend, as could Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs is going to win soon. We can see it. That team has even more speed this season than they did last year. Ty Gibbs is really getting comfortable with this car. He led over 100 laps here at Bristol last fall. If he was 20 or longer, 20-1 or longer, I would be betting Gibbs this weekend. I can't do it at 14-1. I'm not interested in that. I do think he's going to win. I think he can legitimately contend this weekend, but I'm not betting Ty Gibbs at 14-1. Still, though, good luck this weekend at Bristol, the Food City 500. Hopefully, we can have another crushing week, just like we did at Phoenix last weekend. And we'll be back next week when we talk about Circuit of the Americas and the first road course race of the 2024 season.